Hi there, Jackie here with Goodie Stash. Thank you for joining me for today's project. I'm so excited because we're going to be working on a soft journal kit. If you purchase this kit, thank you so much. If you purchased a kit and your fabrics do not match this, that is because we're still using the same technique, but the kits will vary. So if you're making a soft stitch, if you're making a slow stitch journal, this will be the tutorial for it. Regardless of the fabric, the technique stays the same. This is offered in my Etsy shop, and this is the tutorial for that kit. But keep in mind, if you don't want to purchase the kit, you could use these instructions to create with your own fabric that you have at home. So let's get started. Okay, here's a little overview of a lot of the different prints that come in this kit. The ones I'm working with are a little bit different, just like the shape, how you'll have squares, but I have this, for instance. But there's lots of these smaller fabrics to collage with. But then we also have more of the larger size, which is 9 by 12. It comes with more than just what's on this table, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to put the book itself together, and then you can do with what you want with all the extra embellishments. And I can even show you the embellishments at the end, but first I want to get into how to make the book itself. So here's all the different fabrics. You will get all the same prints in your kit, just the placement of the fabric could vary. And because they are almost all vintage materials, you can expect to have some natural wear, but I would never include anything that I myself wouldn't be excited to work with. And I love how this is very like cottage. This is very like cottage floral, and I love how this all came together. So here's some of the larger fabrics. These are 9 by 12, and we're going to be using the larger ones to create the cover. And there will be extra so that you can create like your collages within the pages at your own pace. But for this, I'm going to show you how to make the cover and how to attach the pages, and then you will collage on your own time what you want on every page. Okay, so each kit also will include these, which this is the batting, so it gives the cover that soft, fluffy feel. And then I've included a variety of fleece, flannel, and canvas. So you have different textures, and these are intended to be the pages that you will collage on top of. So kind of like the base fabrics. I like how that's frayed already. Okay, so first I put the pages, I fold them in half, and then I need to figure out how big I want my journal to be. And I do this for all of my journals. I will just lay down some paper. In this case, I'm just going to tape these two pieces together because I couldn't find a piece big enough. And then I'm going to take the bundle of pages, which in this case are fabric because we're making a fabric journal or a fabric book, whichever you choose. And so I'm folding this over to see if it will be big enough, and it definitely will. So I'm going to go ahead and trace around the edge of this just so I know the bare minimum that I would not want my journal to be any smaller than. Scooch it over about an inch, and that's allowing extra space to add to the journal. So adding kind of a spine there, and that allows the journal to get bulkier over time. Then I will trace this side, and this shows me exactly really how long I want the journal. And then once I have it outlined, I tend to add about a ½ inch on each side, and that gives me just that little hangover because I don't like the journal to be the exact size as the pages. But if you did, you could just leave it like this. It's the thing with slow stitching and junk journaling, but slow stitching in this case is my favorite part. There are absolutely no rules. So at any point, if I'm showing you something and you want to do it different, you want to do your own way, go for it. And you can always leave me ideas in the comments. We can learn from each other. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, and then I'm going to start figuring out how I want my patchwork to go. I definitely want to include the toile print on the cover. So I'm going to go ahead and trim off right where I want it, like my favorite part of the pattern. And I like the idea of doing the spine in a different fabric, but then carrying some of these fabrics from the cover to the back. So I'm just going to place the fabric where I think I would like it, and I'll start cutting it. But I want to show you really quick, if you wanted to not do a patchwork cover, you could definitely do that. Cover the batting like this, cover the batting with another fabric on the back, and then you would just sew around the edges. You would have raw edges. This is a raw edge tutorial. I'm not doing the finished edges. That's not the look I'm going for. But if you did that, you sew around the edges, you have the raw edges, you can add a binding of your choice if the raw edges bother you, and then you can just cut the journal pages to fit inside this. But for the sake of this video, I'm actually going to make a larger journal because I want to create the patchwork design. So this is just another option. If you do not want to do the patchwork route, you just cut the pages smaller and boom, you pick your fabrics, cover is done. So that's an easier option for like a total beginner if you're not if you're not feeling adventurous enough to do patchwork. Now, if you are, let's keep going. Just a side note, if you are making a larger journal, you will need a larger piece of batting. I will include the larger size in your kit so you can cut it to whichever size you prefer. So I'm going to go ahead and pin these down so I can remove the paper from beneath, and I'm going to do a basting stitch. If you're not familiar with what a basting stitch is, I will show you that right now. Embroidery thread is included with this kit, but for the basting stitch, I'm going to use just a regular thin thread. You could use the embroidery thread, it just totally depends what you want to do. But I'm using this because that way, if I want to remove these stitches later, I can. The basting stitch is just holding all these pieces of fabric together so that they don't move around while I do the more decorative stitches later. Once I have the needle threaded, I just tie in a single knot on the end. Then I just pull it through starting from the back, pull it through to the front. Then from the front, I go back to the back, and I like to keep my fingers on this loop to prevent from tangles. And then once I pull that all the way through, then what I do is I just take a little bite out of that fabric. Again, hold on to the loop, and this time I'm taking the needle through that loop once and twice. And this is securing my knot on the back. And now a basting stitch is almost just like this really gigantic haphazard running stitch. So I just go in at random places on the fabric. I go in, and then I tend to do a smaller stitch on the front, and then on the back I will do a much larger stitch so that I can travel from fabric to fabric. And this doesn't take very long because I'm not doing a bunch of small uniform stitches. I'm doing small stitches on the front. Of course, you could do larger ones if you prefer. And then on the back is where I'm kind of jumping like large gaps. And I'll show you the back here when I'm done. But you can just skip over this if you already know how to do a basting stitch. This video is intended for somebody that wants the full tutorial, like how I do it, my process. But feel free, if you're more advanced, to just skip over a lot of this more basic or more basic beginner information. You'll notice how sometimes the fabric kind of puckers like that, which is just because I've pulled it too tight and those long stitches on the back. So then you just pull the fabric to smooth it out on the front, and that will release the tension. And I hope I'm explaining that to where I hope that makes sense. So again, if you get these little wrinkles, just smooth it out. And that is pulling on the thread on the back side to become looser so that it lays flat. Because I don't want these puckers on my project. So periodically I'll accidentally pull the thread too tight, and so I'll have to smooth the fabric like this. And this is also why I'm okay with pulling out my basting stitches later after I do my decorative stitches. But I do like it for it to be smooth. All right, now I have all of the pieces attached enough to where I can move it and they won't come apart. And this is what the back looks like. See these jumbo size stitches, kind of just holding it together until I can get in and add more stitches, the permanent stitches. I prefer this instead of pinning, but you could just keep your fabric pinned if you find that easier. Okay, to show you where we're headed next, shortly after, I'm going to be folding these over and stitching it onto the basting. So I want to leave enough just to be able to fold it over. So I'm deciding which fabrics I want to be on the inside. I think I'm going to go with these two. Yeah, I think I'm good with these two. So once I have those decided, I can set them to the side, because before I sew the lining fabric to the front cover fabric to the patchwork fabric, which will be the entire exterior of the book, and the batting sandwiched in between, I want to go ahead and finish designing the outside of the book, because if I don't, then those stitches are going to show through on this interior fabric. So I will take the interior fabric, set it aside, keep the batting underneath, and now we're going to start doing all of the decorative stitching with the embroidery thread. And so I want to show you the difference on how I use the embroidery thread versus just my regular thread for my sewing machine. It's thicker. I use a needle threader for both, but you can see I still struggle with even getting it through the needle threader. It's a little fiddly and my eyes aren't as good as they used to be, but here I'm using a cotton this is a cotton thread, but it's very comparable to embroidery thread in the thickness. So once I thread it through, I leave a little tail, but unlike the sewing thread, I don't tie a knot at the end. I leave it loose. And then I take it in through the back of the fabric, just like before. Pull it through, but I leave a tail there. I'm using one of the needles from the kit too here, because you need it for the embroidery thread. So I still hold on to that loop and then let it go all the way through. And now I go ahead and hand tie a double or a triple knot, or a single if you're crazy. This is where the slow stitching really begins. I like to take my time doing these sort of chunkier visible stitching, and the way I prefer my slow stitching, I prefer the stitches to not be uniform. I don't like the idea of having to stress out about them looking perfect. So I will intentionally like have music on while I just sort of get into the flow state of where do I want this stitch to go? Where do I want this color to land? How do I want this line to look? And it just kind of happens naturally as I go. I see how I'm kind of going in a little bit of a V pattern there. And then I decide I want to do a few straight stitches, and I don't know a lot of different like decorative stitching. So I just do different variations of running and seed stitching. So I will keep stitching at my own pace until I have this entire patchwork fully secure and I have the stitches where I like them, and I feel happy with the placement, and I feel happy with the strength of the construction. I wanted to show you really quick that how I have this fabric on the spine that's already been sewn. That's because it came off of a vintage curtain, and I'm using the part that has the stitching. But in your kit, as you'll see, you get the full like panel of fabric, so a larger section of it, and it's not already pre-stitched. It doesn't have a hem. And another example is this. I have this sort of shoulder detail off of this vintage garment, but in your kit you will have more of like a square cut, so it's a little easier to create with. But all of these do show signs of like fading or life, like see the pilling. These textiles have already been around for decades, so just a little disclaimer there. Okay, so I thought I would share this with you really quick because this is sort of the process for most creative projects. My original plan is not working. I thought I was stitching this down as I was stitching this edging. I'm just folding it in half and stitching it all along the batting edge. I knew it would be a little short here, but I was going to add another fabric. But then I realized when I pull it up, it's only attached right here. So what I'm going to do, just to simplify this, is I'm going to snip the fabric right here, continue sewing this around the batting edge, and then I'm going to put fabric on top of that and sew it down. So I will cut a piece that will cover this entire thing, and I will attach that, or I will do another little patchwork thing. But I think I'm going to go with a solid because I do have lots of solids in my inventory. So I just want to jump in and say that because there's always going to be little bumps in the road like that, and you just get creative with however you want to solve the issue. But I don't feel like quitting the project is the answer. I want to finish it. I just have to finish it in a different way than I originally thought. Now I'm just ironing the pages that got a little wrinkled that go inside the journal. So this is the flannel, and then I ironed the canvas too, but the fleece was totally fine. I decided to cut down a little bit off a few of the pages just so they're not the exact same length. I just kind of like that variety. I wanted to show you because you can see it really good here in the light. You see this imperfection? That's a perfect example of why using this fabric works so well in the slow stitch journal, because that's just going to be collaged over. So that sort of thing can be expected with vintage fabrics. So I wanted to point that out because I don't want you to be surprised if you see discolorations. The majority of items don't have them, but the ones that do, I have in there for a reason. Now I'm moving on. If you see, the top edge of this already was hemmed, this fabric. It came off of an old linen. So I'm going to go ahead and fold over and iron the 3 sides, and then I'm going to hand stitch them. I'm going to use my machine to stitch them down, and then I'm going to hand stitch them into the journal. You could just hand stitch them right into the journal if you want. I just want to have, and I just am having fun with different colors of thread, that's all. Then I'm just repeating that with this other fabric, so I'll have 2 pockets on the interior of my journal. Okay, so I went ahead and cut out this green felt and glued it down with fabric glue, and then I'm going to stitch it down, and I will include the green felt in your kit as well if you decide you want to do it for the interior. It played really well off the pockets that I'm going to add, and I like that it doesn't fray, so it leaves a nice clean edge. So this is what the front looks like. I did that daisy stitch on camera, but then I lost the footage, so I'll do a separate video with decorative stitches as I learn them. And I really love how the back looks too. Okay, as you can see, this is where I used my sewing machine to sew, which was totally unnecessary. And now I'm just going to place these where I want them, making sure the part that's going to be the pocket is upright, or wherever I want the pocket to be. So also around the other 3 edges. And on this one, I will sew around these 3 edges, and then this will be the pocket. And I found this pink thread in my drawer. It's a size 7 cotton thread, like satiny cotton thread, and I just love how that contrasts with the green and it complements the florals. So this is where having the soft cushiony cover with batting comes in handy, because as I'm stitching these, I have that extra cushion that keeps me from these stitches showing through on the front. So I will go all around here and I will be aware of just not going all the way through. So when I show you the other side, there's no pink. I don't want pink on that side, not on the white. All right, this is what it looks like all stitched together. I'm really happy with how that came out. Okay, we've come to the final part of the tutorial. So I am going to get some thread, and I like to do at least 2 times the length of this spine, and then if I have a little extra, great. It looks like I just have that amount, so I'm going to use that. That should be plenty. And I'm going to sew. What I've done is I've divided the pages in 3, 1, 2, 3, then folded them in half. So these are going to go here, and I'm just going to stitch them together. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the middle. Let's add a pin so that I can kind of mark the middle. I'll add so then I'm going to stitch down and in the process come out the back. So really quick, instead of stitching all 6 together at once, which you could do that if you prefer, I prefer it this way because it allows the pages not to be as crowded when you start adding to the interior of the journal. So I just need to close the journal and kind of see where those pages end up. Make sure that everything is enclosed. So this is the center. So let me mark. And it does not have to be perfect. I'm just going to kind of mark where this center of this book is, and then where the center of the other one is. And that'll give me a basic guideline of where to stitch. All right, let's get started. I'll set these to the side and I'll start with this one. Leave a little tail there so I can tie the knot. Oh, this ended up, got it caught on the needle here. Okay. And now I'm going to take this out because I see where the middle is. Okay. Now I want to start stitching it down. So I'm going to kind of center it here. Just gonna get that knot as close to that. Take it all the way through. I'm going to keep my stitches relatively small on this side. I need a thimble to push it through. Oops. I know, I can't wear the thimbles all the time. It drives me crazy. And then I'm going to take a rather big stitch here. Just double check that this is about halfway. Okay, it looks like this is not the halfway point. When I fold it, oh no, it is. Okay. Yeah, it's close enough. I thought at first it was like this. Okay. So I'm just going to keep going. Take a pretty big stitch here. I kind of want to do a small one here because I really don't want a bunch of big stitches. Oops. So if I even come up close to that center line, I'm good with that. It does not have to be perfectly down the center. Just as close as I can get it. Oh, I got my finger. I do that every time. Every single project, at some point, it wouldn't be complete if I didn't get my finger, but not bleeding. So, take a little bit bigger of a stitch here. Okay. If you've supported my Etsy shop, thank you so much. I cannot tell you how appreciative I am of all my customers over there. It's very exciting and new and a little scary, but I feel so thankful for the support I have already. I'm very, very appreciative of you. Okay, that will do it. So then I just make sure that everything's tight. There aren't any like big loops. And I will go ahead and think I will come over here to the edge. I don't mind my knots being kind of throughout the project, but I do like to keep them. Got the camera. I do like to keep them sort of hidden, somewhat hidden. So here it'll blend really nicely over here. So I'm just gonna finish this off my regular way, through the loop, through the loop. 2 should be plenty, but if you have OCD like me, 3, boom. Stab myself again. And sometimes with something like this, I don't want the spine to come undone. So I'm just gonna go over here just a tiny bit. I feel like when I'm filming, everything's harder, but when I'm not filming, I don't have these issues. I do have issues, but not as many. I think I feel like, oh, I have to hurry before my camera says it's out of space. I feel this extra pressure also. So all I'm doing is just making one more knot just to make it extra secure. And this one I'll just do twice. Snip it off. And then I'll repeat that on the other side and I will show you. I will do the exact same thing on the other side, but here I'm just gonna park this one here and then stitch right there where I've marked it and go all the way up. Anybody out there who's able to thread their needle without one of these little needle threaders, you're my hero. I can barely thread with the needle threader. And I'm wearing glasses too. Can you imagine if I live to be like 80, what my eyes will be like then? Okay, cross that bridge when we get to it though, huh? Oh, I've got a knot here. A little tip that I didn't know for a really long time. When you get a knot at the end of your thread, just kind of use your needle to kind of prick around it. Of course, try not to prick yourself, but like most of the time, I'm able to get it out, get the knot out this way, versus having to cut it and start over again. This one's being a little stubborn. Okay. There we go. Oh, I made a knot right here. That's okay, it's at the very end. Actually, that could probably just be my knot for this, but you get the idea. I used to always start over when I got a knot. I had no idea that I could get it out with that, which is typical me. The obvious solution usually eludes me. But I just learn from other people as I go. And I guess just by doing and experimenting too. Okay. You know, I'm wondering if some people would prefer, like if I go ahead and make the soft stitch book with the pages, leave all the pages blank, just make the cover and some interior pockets, and then you're ready to just, and then I include, and I can either include fabric and trim, etc., for you to like have your own kit, or just have the book and you can do your own thing with whatever fabric you want. I'm wondering if anybody would prefer that to making their own book. Let me know in the comments if that sounds like something you'd be interested in. All right, let me do a quick test and see how these pages are gonna lay. Yes, that works. I like to do little tests throughout because so many times I finish completely and then I'm like, oh, this is crooked, or this doesn't close all the way, or whatever. The pages don't fit. So many things. I constantly do little tests now to save myself headache later. Ooh. Stuck. There we go. Okay, let me check. See if any of these are, yep, they're all tight. do one more. And I'll tie it off. I want to tie this one off on the inside. There is one little small correction I'm going to make. If you can see here how this page sticks out just a little bit. So I'm going to just trim this one page, maybe a tiny bit of this one. And so the whole thing sits in there a little bit better. Oh, I forgot we have to add a closure. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so this is mother of pearl, a mother of pearl bead that I am going to sew, and these do come in the kit. I'm going to sew it right here, and then I'm going to have the ribbon closure. Actually, I think I might want it. Let me zoom out. I think I'll put it right there. So I didn't include this in the kit. You're going to need a smaller needle that can go through the bead. There, that'll work. So these just come in your standard hand sewing, like these. Hand sewing assorted needles. So I may have to use a skinnier thread. I'm going to see if I can get my cotton thread. See if I can get this on there. It was too big, so I'm just using the sewing, the thread I use on my sewing machine. I'm pretending I'm tying this shut so I can see how much it needs to go underneath there. So I need to leave it a little loose like that so the lace can go underneath. Okay, then I will sew the lace back here, and this will wrap around, and that'll be the closure for this journal. Of course, you could use a button. I'm realizing this is a little finicky. Maybe I didn't leave it quite loose enough. It'll still work, but a button probably would have been better, but I just really liked the look of this. I just folded it under and I'm going to pin it so it doesn't move on me until I can get it secure. Okay. Now I'm going to go over this more than just a normal thing because it's going to get a lot of wear. It's going to be pulled on a lot. So I will just keep going back and forth until I'm happy with it. And I'm purposely keeping my stitches small on the inside here just because I feel like that'll be distracting to the interior. I love how that looks, the iridescent. I just think it complements this overall style really well. So it's not as functional as a button, but in this case, I still think it's worth it. Okay, that completes the tutorial. So thank you so much for watching. And if you have any other questions about putting this together, leave me a comment and I will either address it in the comments or make a separate video depending on what it is. But because this video has already gone on quite long, everything else for this kit will be on the Etsy description and I will leave that linked in the description box of this video. So if you want to see everything that's included in that kit, that's where you can find it. I will have this one, which is already pre-made with blank pages, available on my Etsy. And this will come with a little pack to embellish it with. It won't be as extensive as the kit, but this will be another option for somebody that just wants a pre-made book. You don't want to make the book, but you want to just embellish the book. So that will be another option. But I only, of course, I just have the one for that. But this is how it came out. Let me know what you think, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next project.